And we're back and we're moving into our conversation for this morning. As we said, March, we celebrate the women across the world and also here in Belize. And this year, the theme for Women's Month is Balance for Better, Innovate for Change. That's the topic of our discussion with quite a diverse panel, I have to say that much. So we're starting off on this side. I'll tell you who will be having this conversation with us. We have Anita Zetina, who is a former CEO in the Ministry of Human Development. Next to her, we have Valerie Woods, who is the Senator for the People's United Party. And then we have our youth advocate, no stranger here at Open Your Eyes, Dominique Noralez. And then on the right, representing civil society, Lily Bowman from the Belize Red Cross. And Sandra Mckay, who is the Managing Director of Goshens Orchids, and well known for many things, but today here as a business representative, right? Or theater, if you feel like it. Okay. Good morning and welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, it's the hot seat. You do know that.
It is.
So when you use it, you'll just hold it up. So here's where I wanted to start the conversation. I think every year when we talk about Women's Month, there are a lot of people who start to say, oh, why do we celebrate it? Why do we have to put all this focus on women? Women are advancing, they're in schools. What's your perspective in terms of the specific focus on women as a vulnerable group? And I want to start with you, Anita.
Well, I think that every day is Women's Day. Mm-hmm. However, there is need to have special time to dedicate to recognize the achievements of women, but I think most importantly to take stock of where we are and where we need to go. Because although there has been much achievement, there is a lot more work that needs to be done to ensure that we do have equity and equality in our society today. And not only in Belize, but in the world.
Yeah. Any other perspectives? Remember, this is an open conversation. You can jump in when you feel like it. Dominique, let's get the youth perspective.
Well, like Ms. Anita said, I think it's important to take stock of where we've been, or where we are rather, and look at where we've been and make sure that we never go back there, never making decisions that will be retroactive and non-progressive or retrogressive, whatever you want to say. So I think it's important to just celebrate where we are and celebrate womanhood.
Do you think that on a whole, women today at present are being acknowledged for their respective contributions to society in any field? That you're getting the respect and the acknowledgement from your male counterparts?
I don't. I think that it's very important that we celebrate Women's Month because we don't celebrate women enough, and we celebrate very few of them. So, for example, you look at your educational system, there's very few and far in between of what you can find as women roles for our young boys and girls to see, to recognize the role that women played in nation building for this country. It's not in our history books. I do think that you have pockets of people across this country that take time out to highlight some of them. The artists come to mind because I find that artists in general seem to be a lot more willing and perhaps more creative by nature to do it and then to have it resonate. Yeah. So I think of Image Factory, I think of painters and actual artists on who do work on canvas. I think of poets in Belize who have brought that out, but to have it as institutionalized as something, no. I don't think we do enough of it.
Think about this, and I'm coming from the humanitarian side of things, civil society, if you say. Many of those organizations have started with women, or women have started those organizations. Yes, the Red Cross was started by a businessman from Switzerland, but who did he get to take care of those fallen soldiers on the field, on the battlefield? Women. It was a church full of women, volunteers from the community that took care of those persons, and that is how first aid started in the world. So I don't think, like my other colleagues, I don't think that we are celebrated enough. But you use a very important word that should not be lost. You use the word respect. And I don't think there is enough respect for women in the homes, in the workplace, or other places. And that is where change has to happen. That is where a lot of focus has to be placed.
Is it because perhaps we're still very much, well, I'll speak for Belizean society, perhaps we're still very much in that patriarchal way of thinking and way of doing things?
I think a lot of it has to do with that. Whether consciously or unconsciously, we tend to look at the women in a servant role and a subservient role rather than recognize the level of contribution she brings to the table in every facet of life, beginning with the home. The woman is a businessman from the time she's running a family. She's the Minister of Finance, she's the Minister of Home Affairs. She makes sure that everything in that home is running right. And yet, many times women get bypassed when it comes to being recognized and acknowledged. And I think that comes from that old way of thinking, which perhaps is what Dominique is referring to, that we don't want to go back to, because the truth is we're all equal. And so as the woman contributes and the man contributes, both should be recognized and acknowledged. It's not necessarily so. And so pausing to acknowledge women in Women's Month is very important to highlight some of these factors.
And I go back to Lily's story about the man who started the Red Cross and the women did all the work. I think today in our political system, that continues to be the same, that men become the ministers or the representatives, but they only get there because of the support of women. And so women need to learn to support other women, because if we are leaders in our homes, managing, why is it that we can't be leaders in the House of Representatives? And so the more it changes, the more it stays the same, the way I see it, because it is that women do a lot of the work for men to be sitting, representing us in the House of Representatives.
And I think until we start to normalize that a woman belongs at that table and around that table, not just to serve, but to be part of decision making. I think until we start doing that actively and consciously, because we make mistakes, I think, daily in Belize with it. At any given event where you see that table stocked with men, that event needs to go on pause. Because when the cameras roll and the people are watching or listening, you're sending a message. Unconsciously, perhaps, but you're sending a message. In the current government, there was an opportunity of where you had 2 elected women. Did they get ministers' portfolio? No, they got ministers of state. And again, in the mind of people, that is not a full minister. In fact, it's not a full minister. So it sends another message. You're good enough to have one, but not yet good enough to have been given a portfolio. So I think until we collectively, we can change laws, we can have all of these campaigns, but the mindset of people is another thing to change. But we have to help that along, and I don't think we're doing it.
Let me throw some statistics. I'm not a statistician. I hate maths. But the reality is, and research has shown that the majority of the world's population are women, right? The most. And yet only 33% of those women are managers. 26% are senior managers, and 20% are executives.
So many see.
It also, statistics also show, or research has shown, that when you have only men on the top of an organization, the productivity of, or the best decision making is done, or better decision making is done only 53%, 58% of the time. Add women, make it diverse. Better decision making is done 73% of the time.
Wow.
Go a little further, get more diverse, get both women, men, boys, girls, all ages, all geographical locations, and you get 87% of better decision making.
Yeah.
So it goes to show that gender parity, gender balance
Yeah.
is key for good decision making
Yeah.
at the top of an organization.
We have,
Or a business.
Lily, we have of a parliament that is a total of 44, 31 and 13. We have a dismal 11% that are women. And that's because 2 are elected in the House and 3 are appointed. So the
There you
3
go.
at any given time in the Senate may not necessarily be
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the Senate. Now, when you take that statistic and put it against the decisions and legislations coming out of that parliament, it is surprising. There has not been singular legislation focused on improving quality of life for women and children over the past several years. There seems to have been a lull. We don't have a legislative agenda in the parliament. We don't even know when the next session would be on any given month. As a senator, we met the last time in December, and I wrote about this recently, and we only met because we had to meet some deadline because of some world trade policy issue. When more women are in that House of Representatives, in particular, so not as much as I'd want it more in the Senate, but in the House of Representatives where the legislation first comes, right? That's when you would start to see change where some of the gender balancing will occur in legislation.
Yeah.
But until we get more women around those tables, we're not going to get it.
But how do we do it? Because I think one of the things I hear very clearly from what you've all said, the theme is balance for better. And one of the first misconceptions people have about empowering women, it means that you're suppressing men. So less men will be represented. So that's one thing that I wanted you to tackle. But the other part is that we know we need more women in leadership. We know that women representation makes a difference. But sometimes it seems that we are our own worst enemies
Yes,
in holding ourselves back. Why is it that the woman behind the scenes of a campaign is not empowered enough to put herself on the slate? Why is it that the hardworking woman in the office doesn't ask for the promotion or push for the promotion that everyone knows they deserve? Why is it that we still have these self-limiting barriers in 2019?
And you ask, how do you change this?
Yeah.
And you change it with involvement and engagement from, okay, and again, I'm talking from the perspective that
Yeah.
I'm in, the civil society that I belong to. Our federation, our international federation has committed to work, and they have just done this since 2017. So there is that imbalance across the Red Cross family as well. They have committed to work with national societies like the Belize Red Cross in setting targets to increase promoting of women to leadership positions and the governance role.
Yeah.
Because right now the governance body of the International Federation are men.
Yeah.
Almost the whole body. So they are working with, they have recognized it, and that's
Yeah.
one of the first things that we need to get changed. They have to recognize that there is an imbalance.
Yeah.
And so they're working with national societies to promote that. And that is because they know that with gender equality, gender parity, gender balance on the leadership of the organization, everybody will benefit. You'll be more efficient, more effective, a lot better decision making and designing of activities, programs, actions. The community will then benefit. They will trust when there is a good balance of men and women of all ages as well.
Yeah.
The community trusts us a lot more. So all around you benefit. But the change has to come from those that are on top first, and those that have the authority, and not only that. I should change that. The change has to come from us.
Yeah.
We have to realize our potentials as women, and we have to step up. I will tell you the truth, and Sandra may be able to vouch a little bit of this. I have always been a ringleader, haven't I? From growing up. So, like, for instance, when they asked me to come on this show, and I said, okay, but I started to think that I have never thought of myself as anything less than a leader. I have never. You have to step up. I'm always stepping up at the front of the line. I don't like sit down in the back. I don't like to sit in the back. I always go to the front, and even at church here, I walk way up to the front. But it is what it is. That's me. And that is what a lot more women should do. You know, recognize their potential and not be afraid to step up.
But the systems that we have around us do not encourage that. And so there has to be, these changes have to be institutionalized, because not every one of us has the opportunity to be able to do what we do. And so we have to create even from within the home, because that is where it all starts. We have to begin to train our boys and girls to respect each other, to see each other as equal.
Big time.
You know, and that's where the innovation for change has to start. Because some of us are able to do what we do because we had the support in the home to be able to do it. Many of our girls don't have that opportunity. And so
That is true.
our educational system has to encourage more girls to be a part. I remember, I don't know if that has changed, I've never gone back to look at it, but many years ago our social studies book spoke about the banana industry. And the banana industry, the story went to say for our primary school that the bananas were cut by the men and they were brought to the shed by the men, and then the bananas were washed and shipped away. Never mention of who washed the bananas.
Yeah.
The women wash the bananas. So women are invisible in many
In
of
the role that
in
they
the
play.
role that they
Our
play.
history books are really silent on the role of women, and it's a critical role. So it's not to say that, I'll use your example, Anita, the washing of the banana isn't, it's a pivotal part of that process for the export of banana.
Exactly.
Because
And we
men's
don't-
hands won't scratch the bananas.
Right,
So
and
they-
we don't appreciate, in many things, we don't recognize the importance of various roles and varying roles, whether they're held by women or men. I do agree that a lot of it needs still to be institutionalized, because a lot of the examples in our school books are still very much male-dominated. You find it difficult, even when I have a daughter right now going at SCA, and I have to make sure that I am conscious in my own education of her outside of the academics, to let her be aware at all times that you can do and be whatever you want, regardless if the book that you're being given only gives a
One
male example.
Yeah.
It's very important. Now, I grew up in a family of 7 girls, one boy. So perhaps I had an advantage, right? Because of that fact. But many of our homes aren't like that. Many of our homes perhaps is the reverse, right? Where you have more men or more boys than girls, or you have a boy and a girl. But in that case where you have a boy and a girl, which is the case I find myself in with 2, I have to make sure that I'm doing my part as a parent to let them both know that they are equal. I will not show more to one than the other, because what you said earlier is absolutely important. It starts from the home.
It does. And remember, I was sharing just before we came on the show that we were raised, we were 4 girls, 3 boys. We were raised to serve our brothers. And we were raised that when we sat around the table as a family, nobody touches that food until my dad did.
Wow.
So, you know, we were raised like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes they did push the button and take advantage of us, but you know, it was natural to us. So obviously, when we got married, you know,
You kept it. You
you
kept
know,
it going.
or rebelled.
Yeah.
May I ask this question? I'll just put this out there.
No pressure.
Go
When
ahead.
you look,
Be the male voice.
when
You're
you
only
look-
surrounded.
Blessing our dog.
You're only surrounded
I'm comfortable, but I'll put this out there nonetheless. When you look at the direction, perhaps, in which our little Belizean society is heading today, you look at the composition of the family, where perhaps in some households it's strictly led by women, single parents.
A lot.
And you look at the education system, where you have a high dropout rate where it involves male students, it would seem as if though we're moving in a certain direction where perhaps in the near future, women will begin to take the lead in terms of various aspects of either business, education, or the home. Correct me if I'm wrong, it appears to be that way. Do you believe that then that would represent a sort of paradigm shift coming from where you're saying, well, you were raised to serve your brothers and your father has to be at the table before anyone breaks bread, so to speak?
Or it could be that it's enslaving women even more. Because when you find so many women-headed families, you know, the man is absent, it, to me, at times it limits what that woman can do because she's so burdened down with raising all those children. So you can look at it from different angles.
I don't necessarily think that the educational system in the way that it is now will translate into a societal change. That those things doesn't follow the other. I grew up in a family with an older sister than me, the middle child, and then my little brother. And he wasn't the prize child, but you know, there was more care given to him, I guess, because of where we grew up and boys being in a more vulnerable state in terms of gang violence and all of that. But I don't see the correlation between because even though women are generally more educated than men in terms of proportion, and still men are in these high decision-making positions. So, and then women are CEOs and everything after that. So I don't necessarily think it translates.
I do think that attention, though Isani, indeed needs to be given to our young boys.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't, like Dominique, I don't think it's a correlation of women perhaps ascending more in education, but there is something happening there, and I don't think we're giving it enough attention why we're having that level of dropout of our young boys. And it needs to be catered to, addressed, accommodated in some, again, form of formal programming for us to address the core of what's going on there, because it will become an issue.
It's a root problem of what's happening in our society too.
Yes.
But also, I think that, I don't know if there's any research to show, but you know how we raise our boys and girls differently in the home. Boys are allowed to be outside and to be free, and girls are more structured and disciplined. When you move from that into the educational system, it is harder for boys to remain in a classroom that is so disciplined because they are used to being free.
That's true.
And so all of those things in my mind contributes to the fact that boys don't want to be in that environment. And so our educational system
Has to change. Has to
look
adjust.
at that.
Interesting.
Right.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because I know that I went to SCA. Our classes were very long, 75-minute classes. And when you go to SJC, the classes are 45 minutes long. And so you see there's a huge difference in terms of what you're saying, where the classes, longer
accommodate for attention span.
Yeah. So our class at 75 minutes is all. I couldn't deal with that, but you know I had to. But you see that difference there in terms of.
I'm trying to think.
But I think this brings back the issue of the balance that we talked about. That while we're talking about getting women to the table as leaders, or having young girls feel empowered to be whatever they want to be, that there is a balance of recognizing that there's another vulnerable population that we have to work towards as well. And I know that some of the research shows the type of gang activity or type of criminal activity that you get involved in leading back, not all the reasons, but some of the reasons go right back into the home and how they're parented.
Yes. Exactly.
And those parents are predominantly women.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I believe when Anita said in the beginning that every day is Women's Day, it is something that we really have to kind of take literally, because beginning in the home, women have to be nurtured, supported, encouraged to know that they can be and do whatever they want to be and do. That is not necessarily happening based on the conversations we've heard. I heard Lily's example of what happened at home. And mine is a little different in terms of 3 boys and a girl. But my mom, she had a roster for duties, and everybody's going to come up on that roster for every duty that was on that list. So nobody got any preferential treatment. And so we all knew that we were equal. You don't get to do this because you're a boy, or I get to do this because I'm a girl. And I think if that is lacking in the homes, in fact, it is lacking in many homes today where children feel equally treated, or girls, as we're focusing on right now, feel that sense of ability to just accomplish and to be and do.
It depends on the number. It depends on the number of women to men, though.
In the home?
In the home.
Perhaps. However, we have this saying that says, it takes a village to raise a child. And where it is absent in the home now, we just have to recognize that there is more required of us as a society,
Of course.
to ensure that these children, in terms of the balancing even, both the male and the female recognize the equality and recognize each other's value for what it truly is, so that as you come up through the system, the education system, the work system, you have a sense of looking towards who has the right merits for taking up a proper role. I'm not looking at your gender.
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
want to know who is best qualified to do what needs to be done, because both can be and do whatever they need to be and do. That is not happening at all, hardly, as a society generally speaking.
No, because even though more girls are graduating from tertiary level institutions, they still have a harder time getting a
Nobody's
job.
recognizing their work.
Exactly.
So, you
So
know,
we
so the
have work
fact
to
that
do.
And look at what
we
they
are
major
more
in
in
too.
education. Yes,
Exactly.
we are not in the sciences and the technology and the
Business admin.
mathematics.
Right.
What I am adding to that too is that every day is Women's Day. Every day is Men's Day too. We have to get busy schooling our young people, especially to understand their true worth, their true value, and that each has a role to play in the contribution of growth and development of
And
the
that
home,
comes with
the society.
with the innovative for change, that while women have taken the lead to empower women, we are not seeing that with the men. And there is a need to have men work with men, because men won't listen to me as a
The
woman.
men ask the women, and I've seen it many times, not just on television, but from as far as I've been around a women's department, when are you going to start a men's department?
Yeah.
The men ask the women that question.
Yeah.
And so we don't really see men taking the lead, even though they are leaders, in trying to get something together for young boys in society. Some do quietly, but not many will start their own movement.
And that's one of the innovative changes, challenging the masculinity that we see now.
Yeah.
How do we change that to better? You know, I remember also my many years in the women's department looking at a study that was done about the teaching profession, because, you know, for a long time we've been talking about men are being marginalized because of the women's movement. And it spoke about the teaching profession being dominated by women. And so the analogy that was made is, then would we say then that the slaves dominated the plantations? Because in the end, the majority of teachers may be women, but the principals and the administrators, I don't know how much that has changed, were men. So a similar way of men lead and women do the work.
That's what
kind
I
of
was
thing.
sharing too.
And so how do we move that to allow women to take their rightful position? Because indeed, balance will bring better. If we're able to give women the space to be able to work along with the men, better will come.
And not just
We
give
have
it,
to
take
join.
it.
Well, yes.
Well, I mean, I always wonder if it's a personality trait as well, because some women just seem more empowered to be leaders. You know, you're young, they call you bossy, they tell you shut up and stop and
I get
behave.
all of that.
Bossy.
But yeah, I
You're
think all
bossy.
of, what I'm hearing, I think pretty much all of us got that in the past.
Exactly.
But, you know, two things. One, you spoke of the need for people to help and raising children. And there's a very interesting article which I wish we could share, which talks about if you want to help a child, help the parent, because that's really where you're going to make the most impact. But one of the other things is you spoke of having an equal household. You know, you spoke of being predominantly girls, and so we hear where, you know, some of the equality lessons started at home. But then you get into a school system, and I don't know how much it's changed. Anybody can correct me. Where you know, the girls got to sweep, the boys lift the chair. The girls do all the you know,
Softing.
yeah, and the boys do the heavy lifting, and it starts from such a young age.
It's not just in the tasks of or duties that they assign
Yeah.
at school. So my son went to SJC, and so tasks were obviously distributed among boys, and my daughter is going to SCA. Tasks are distributed among girls. When it comes to innovating for change now in the educational system, I think that it needs to be more than just gender balance in terms of task distribution, but just the entire system of education itself. It has not changed. I am a product of SCA. What has changed is perhaps the number of subjects and the variations of subjects, some of it. But for the most part, we are still teaching our youth, boy and girl, in the same manner that that you and I were taught. And I find it incredible that we have not yet realized in year 2019, where it's the year of social media, the year of attention span being extremely limited, far more than when we were at school, because people are more stimulated by the amount of pings they're getting or likes that they're getting than listening to history, that we have not adjusted or found a way, how do we make our education, one, fun and interesting, two, appealing, resonating to the youth, whether the youth is from a elite society or whether it's from an impoverished society. We are not reaching out to them. And if we started to do that, I think maybe some of this gender issue that we're having may not be as prevalent, because then you're putting people in a setting that they both like. We're not doing that. My daughter at SCA is every day challenging something, questioning, and I love that. But she probably gets that because of her parents. Not every parent will do that. So what you said earlier, Marlene, I think is critical. We do a lot of things with children and youth. We do very few with parents, and our parents are becoming younger and younger.
And if they're never
and in an
exposed
age
to the
that's
concept
different,
of gender equality, they won't be
Exactly.
able to pass it along. Okay, it's getting really good, but we got to put a pause. Right here. we got to put a quick pause, and then when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. There's one more segment to go. Please stay tuned.
What do you want from your bank?
I want to know that my bank will teach me how to save.
I want to know that my bank can help to make my dream of owning a home a reality.
I want to know that my bank will help me grow my business and build Belize.
I want to know that my bank will keep my investment safe.
Whether you want to start a savings plan, build your own home, invest in your business, or plan for retirement, the Belize Bank is here for you. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
The foremost and only legal fraternity in Belize, the Belize Bar Association, commissioned a legal opinion on the Belize-Guatemala dispute by the most respected expert in the Caribbean on international law, Professor Stephen Vasciani. His Excellency Alexis Rosado provided his thoughts on the legal opinion.
The conclusions are very, very helpful. He does do a very balanced approach to both Belize's arguments and Guatemala's arguments as well. And even, as I said before, even when he takes a charitable view of Guatemala's position, he finds that they have no chance and there's no possibility that Belize's boundaries could change or that Belize's titles could be questioned at the International Court of Justice.
Be informed. Visit our website or social media pages.
And we're back. And the conversation is definitely heating up. I told you, I saw this panel and I said to myself, Isani, we're not really needed here, right? They could just keep this going without us.
I'm playing a very limited role.
You should know. We don't encourage anybody shrinking.
If you notice, coffee was served by men today.
No, women.
One woman make it. One woman make it. Bring it. A woman make it. No, that's the same.
You sure about that?
I see the lady come in with it.
Good morning, Dada. We're talking about you, but yes. But I want to put this into perspective because I know, and there's that pressure that we have when we talk about women empowerment and looking at how we should celebrate our women to also say yes, and we appreciate men and recognize. It's almost like a special clause you have to add in every time you talk about women empowerment because yes, there are challenges. We are losing our young boys in the school system and in the streets. But let us not forget that women are facing very serious challenges of sexual violence, of looking at inequalities within the workplace, within sports. And I don't know what it's like within your own areas, but also just how we perceive women and judge them differently based on what they are enduring. And I want to bring that into this conversation because domestic violence, for example, is still something that we struggle to talk about. We do a lot of victim blaming. Sexual violence, a lot of victim blaming. Cyberbullying. Again, a lot of victim blaming, and this is only in relation to women. You don't find many men being killed by their partner. You find
and
women.
When they do, it's because they're tired of it.
And there are statistics that prove that when I can't remember the exact numbers, so I don't want to quote it.
Marlene, I hear the comments because I remember one time in the Senate I raised it and one of colleagues who was male stood up and said we can't forget the men. Now that's true, and by us talking about this, we're not advocating that. But this, I do have a little bit of trouble with that. When I get dressed to go out, my husband, he can put on anything, any time of the day. I can't. I have to consciously think what will be the repercussions. Because he won't be attacked. I will. I have to think twice before I go down a certain street. He doesn't. I have to think, well, am I coming across a little bit too tush if I wear this way or whatever? He doesn't. There is a marked difference. And I make no apologies for that, but I hesitate every time because I ponder the question or the statement, I should say, when people say, but we don't want to suppress men, we don't want to keep them silent. This is not about men. This is the fact, a real fact, that when you and I, Isani, step out, I have to be more guarded. I have to be more alert. There is a real security of my being that you will never have and perhaps never appreciate.
Can I chime in to say this? and perhaps it may seem a little bit off from what you're saying, but when you look at the dynamic between men and women in a setting where, for instance, you're looking at how you're dressed and how you come out of your house, men, for some reason or the other, these days seem to be a bit more conservative. Long pants, shirt, etc. And women, can be argued, seem to be a little bit more on the other end of it where a lot of skin is showing and what have you. While you're
not talking about...
Wait, finish.
I want you to finish.
Talking about the suggers, right?
No, we want you to finish. We won't jump on you yet.
Be careful.
It's not for me to be jumped on. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, look, you have a situation where, okay, the man perhaps is fully dressed, the woman, you know, short skirt, blouse, etc.
Which is fully dressed too.
Yeah, and you're entitled to your space, your privacy, all of that other stuff. But while perhaps the onus is on the individual, just as I'm a man and I choose to wear a certain kind of clothing before coming out that I'm comfortable in, perhaps the onus is also on the woman so that whatever she chooses to wear, she's comfortable in, regardless of how she may be perceived once she walks out. Because a lot of times, the woman, for instance, walks out of the house and the catcalling starts and all of that stuff, and she keeps pulling down her skirt or whatever it is she's wearing. And it would seem as if though, well, okay, only the men are guilty for saying something, but perhaps there wasn't much thought into preparing or dressing yourself a certain kind of way that you're comfortable with that would probably prevent that kind of a reaction.
Can I? Let me just say,
You take one, Sandra.
I'm going to take yeah. I'm perhaps the one that you should welcome to respond to that.
I'm just putting it out there.
Because I'm going to be very kind.
Because that's how people think.
But the truth is, I want to go all the way back to how it was in the days of our parents, my parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and look at some of the things that we may think about that should have been kept rather than lost, and the way they attired themselves. Now, we had in those days well-attired men, well-attired women, and still women suffered from the subserviency that we see today.
There was still rape, there was still domestic violence.
Exactly. There was nothing different about how women were treated. I am not sure because, of course, I haven't looked at any research or anything, but look at it. Women changed the way they dressed back then, and fashions and so on has something to do with it, but still, conservatism versus liberalism in dress, in attire, is something that sends a message. No, I am not, and that's why I say, anyway, so when you look at that change, why did it occur? What was a woman trying to accomplish in her mind by the way she attired herself? No woman wants to be disrespected. You know, no woman wants to be abused. But perhaps there was some inner message that that woman was sending. And I want to think that one of those messages would have been, I can bring attractiveness to the table. But what kind of attractiveness did you want to bring? I can bring ability to the table. See me, notice me. I am here. I can be and do something. I want to think a part of it. Some may be different, but a part of it must have been being recognized. And it goes right back to the whole issue of inequality, elevating the male gender over the female, and the female finding her way of being recognized and acknowledged. Well, if that is the case, it speaks to the fact that as a society then and now, we still haven't addressed that core concern of women knowing their worth and their value and men recognizing it. You want me to tell you something? Nothing is ever going to work well in this or any other society until the male and the female can work in harmony. And a part of what brings that harmony and that equality is the respect we spoke about earlier and the acknowledgement. So what the woman wears is not the real concern. It's what she's trying to accomplish that she should not be trying to accomplish. She shouldn't have to fight for attention. She shouldn't have to fight for acknowledgement. We should see her for who she is and her worth and place her where she belongs that will best serve the growth and development of the home, the community, the society. We still aren't doing that. And that's why I said more than a Women's Month, there ought to be a Women's Day every day in helping everyone to recognize and the woman's worth. And I don't want to not mention men, because one of the things that breaks my heart deeply is how we celebrate Mother's Day versus Father's Day. Again, it's a wrong message to the men as well, because we have to work in harmony if we are to grow and develop the way we should. So I go back to the whole idea of the problem that existed still exists. Don't look at the attire just on the surface. There's more to the message than you see in the attire, and we ought not to be calculating what we wear every day to please society. Okay? So we still have that prevailing problem that needs to be addressed, but not just 1 month for the year. Social media. We can be putting messages out there to help in the home. You know, a child sees a message that is able to reason at their level of maturity and can influence a discussion in the home that makes a change. We have to make use of what is available to bring the right message to impact the change, and I don't think we're doing
Let me
that.
just bring in a little bit of where there's some double speak here, because I know, you know, what Isani said was very controversial, but it is a common thought, and we see it on every trend. Every post that we put out with any rape victim that their stories are publicized. But at the same time, it's almost interesting. I want to bring this directly to Dominique, because Dominique, the social media world is totally different. And in fact, where we talk about criticizing young girls for how they present themselves in public and become a victim of sexual violence, they're also hailed on social media. What gets you more attention online?
The less clothes you wear gets you more attention online. So,
What kind of attention?
your likes. I don't know if you want
Or even reactions.
and likes, reactions, whatever it is that validates.
So I'm just showing how there's two sides to this, because
that's
so we're talking about you shouldn't have to, and I agree with Val here. I think if nobody knows what it feels like to go home to an empty house or in darkness as a woman, and how you have to check back with your family and say, I got home safe every single time. But while we may talk about, you know, a woman can wear what she wants and shouldn't be subjected, has absolutely no right to be subjected to catcalling or threats of violence, at the same time, it is encouraged in now the growing realm of participation for young girls, where if you want to be recognized, well, there's only one way you really get that kind of attention.
Quickly.
I come back to the value system and speak to the fact that attire sends a message. And so a woman who knows her worth don't have to fight for attention. She don't have to wear attire that she thinks will bring attention. She could be fully clothed and feel fully able to take a stand, no matter what cyberbullying occurs, you know, no matter what kind of abuse in catcalling. But that starts at home, to build that self-confidence.
It comes back a lot
So
of
that
that.
she
I think
knows.
comes from respect too.
Close for me, I grew up with my grandmother, right? And so you were expected to dress a certain kind. Well, always have on your slip. I am not a particular fan.
Exactly.
The thing we put on Anita dress, man.
Convent girl to know that.
Yeah. But I'm not a particular fan of prissiness. I like my jeans and my t-shirt. As you can see, but I also like my short dresses. And so, and then being conscious even today, I picked out a skirt and a nice blouse and heels. I would like my heels too. And so, like, I think even when I step out of the house, I have to be, although I wear what I want, I have to also be mentally prepared for what will come with that. Because I remember a day I'm coming from gym, I had on my gym tights and a big t-shirt, and I said, like, I count how much catcalling incidences happen between Mahogany, between the Central American Boulevard and Mahogany to when I get home at the end of Mahogany. And there were 20 men who felt the need to say something about me. And I think this big t-shirt, I look raga, like, what you got for, why you feel the need for tell me something about my body or whatever part you like see or what you want to do with me? I know that doesn't need to happen. And so I think it's inconsequential what clothes you have on. Because sometimes I have on my long skirt. And the thing, it doesn't matter. Police officers do it all the time. To me, these are people who are supposed to be protecting me.
I'll give you an example, because it is true. It really is inconsequential. So I was at a meeting. I won't disclose where, but I was at a meeting, and I've had to go there a couple of times over the course of like 2 months to this place. Now, they recognize that I'm a senator, and they say, they don't refer to me as senator, they don't refer to me as Val, Miss Woods. It's babe and mommy.
Whoa.
No.
So on the fourth time that it occurred, I went up to the gentleman and I said, "What's your name?" Give me his name. I said, "Well, my name is Val. It's either Val, Valerie, Miss Woods. What it is not is babe or mommy." And he said to me, "I didn't mean any offense." I said, "I want to believe that you didn't, but until I correct you, that's going to turn into sexy, Miss So-and-so, and then the other men that I have to walk through are going to start doing that." I said, "You have a daughter?" "Yes." I say, "Imagine her having to go through that." I said, "Don't call me that. And tomorrow, I'm going to say hi to you." And we continued. We don't do enough of that.
But exactly.
We
and
don't do enough of that. We have
exactly,
to check,
I
and we
agree.
have to check, forgive me, but we have to check our leaders on it.
Can I jump in here?
They set a tone and it resonates.
No, I agree totally. I just want to add to that. I remember one day walking to work, and I live right around the corner from my office. And Lord, and I limp and all kind of things. So I don't do anything sexy about whatever. But one of the tour guides, because I live right in the middle of the tourism activity, tell me, "Good morning, mommy." And I spun around, and I have a habit that when I walk on the street, I tell every single person that I pass good morning.
Yes.
Mind you, half of them no answer, but I tell them. So when he said morning, mommy, although I cringed a little bit when I heard the mommy part, I turned around and I still said good morning. You know what followed that? You look so sexy to them.
Yes.
So
Okay,
that's why
so
can
I quickly jump in there?
Exactly.
Can I quickly jump in there? I absolutely hate when men like myself do that. I had an experience over the weekend, a gathering of us guys hanging out, and a young lady was walking past. If my friend stopped at just good morning, that would have been fine.
Yes.
She responded when he said good morning. It's when he went beyond that. She kept walking ahead, didn't respond. But I felt embarrassed, simply because he should have known better. If you want someone's attention, fine to say good morning. If you want to pursue that, if you like seeing the young lady or whatsoever, you could pursue that otherwise. But to hurl a comment behind that, I think is disrespectful and embarrassing for other men who are not into that sort of stuff.
Did you call him out?
Well,
I did, and it wasn't only me. The rest of us called him out on it. But I'm saying, from your perspective,
that's not done enough either.
Until and unless you are able to stop the individual.
Well, I stopped and I said, you had me at good morning. I said, why did you have to spoil
Follow
it?
it up again.
I have a question.
You have to learn
That's
to
the
respect
problem with
women.
those
And I gave
things.
him a little lecture, and then he said, I'm so sorry, never mean nothing by it and whatnot. I said, well, next time you know.
I have a question. Dominique, did it affect your self-assurance and your self-confidence when the 20 men spoke like that? Lily, did it affect your self-assurance and your self-confidence?
No, it didn't.
No, my point though is that that's where we need to bring our women. Because that's my point, that yes, the attire, when we start the whole attire discussion, it may send a message to some others that are undesirable. The woman doesn't want that. I don't think she's set out for that. And if they do, we have to help them. We have to help them to recognize that you don't do it for that. You do it because that's what you feel like wearing today. And you wear what you want. And a jeans and a t-shirt is perfectly acceptable. And whatever the woman chooses to wear. But if we school our women to be so assured of their value, that was my point. That it will make a difference, I believe, in how many women evolve into leadership and so on, because there would be a recognition of it from a very young age, not just by the female, but by the male who hears and understands what the woman's worth, what the female gender's worth is. They're not hearing that. They're hearing you serve them. You wait until they come to the table. You don't eat before they eat. You don't sit before they sit. And those that might not be the only way.
Rough games because you'll scratch yourself and get scars.
Yeah, and that might not be. These might not be the only ways they get the message, but they're getting a wrong message. If we do more of the campaigning to send the right one, it will help more women to have that assurance
and if
to
we
take that stand.
If we demand more respect, but also give Equal respect.
Yes.
There should be reciprocity.
Yes.
We have to always remember
harmony.
See, this is where, and I think it's a great part in rounding off the conversation. I think it's safe to say that all of the women here have perhaps either grown with the support or perhaps have an intrinsic characteristic that allowed you to swim against the stream consistently to where you are today. But I think we are missing a very important element if we think that all women are at this point.
Or even to be fair to men, if we think that all men are, treat women that, with disrespect.
There is a collective responsibility, I think, among women who are confident, who are leaders in whatever they do. And leaders for me doesn't necessarily mean a position.
Or visible leaders.
Right, visible leader, for us to, when we see a young girl or a woman that requires some guidance, some empowerment, that we work with our women and our youth. I think it's incumbent upon us because we have been where they were, or we have been a part of an experience where they appear to be. And I think we have that responsibility, because you are right. Not every young girl is going to be like Dominique. Not every woman is going to be like any of us. And we all do come with varying backgrounds and circumstances. So I think in whatever we do, which comes back to Women's Day really is every day, in whatever we do, whatever we see, whatever we hear, it's incumbent upon us to call it out and to also help and empower where we can.
That's why we have to increase that diversity aspect or factor in gender balance. You know, and you will increase productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, everything along the way if you do that.
I think and this will be probably the final thing I say for today, but I think it's important for us, the women in these positions, the women who are seen as visible leaders, to leave the door open, because and widen that space for other women to come in, because seeing somebody else succeed doesn't take away from my success.
Precisely.
And so having the responsibility to get into the door, widen the space, and then leave the door open for other women to come in, and for other young girls and young men to understand that, hey, there's space for all of us to look good. We all have that 15 seconds of fame. There's time for all of us to contribute to the betterment and not have this competition for fame and popularity.
That's an interesting perspective, and I think that the concept of scarcity is one that comes to mind for me when you think of perhaps we feel there are limited spaces available, and so therefore we don't work together, we work against each other for that top spot. And that's, we can't sit here. If I ask you all individually, off camera or on camera, you guys are brave enough to see on camera, I'm sure you'd say the hardest battle that you face in whatever profession or leadership realm
is the fight against a fellow woman.
Is against another woman. It is against other women, because we are hard on each other.
We are
I won't even begin to justify it. We are hard on each other. I have seen women in politics be crucified by other women. I have seen women leaders who step forward being crucified by other. I've seen women leaders as well, to put it the other way, criticize other women in everyday society for whatever reason I can't explain. And so I wanted to use that.
It's the whole socialization. We go right back to it, where we're socialized to believe that it's only men who should be leaders, and so we need to work on that. To say, for example, a lot of women say, and I said that during the break, I will not vote for just any woman, but we vote for just any man.
Yeah, that is true.
And so how do we begin to change that? The unity is important. If we're to achieve more, we have to come together as women.
And there's a constant need for validation by men. Even in leadership, you will see that.
Let us think about something though. Yes, we are our own greatest enemy. We women criticize women far more than men do.
No, not say that.
Equally.
Not say that, because men criticize too.
Then, probably because I'm
not say women gossip, men gossip.
I'm not saying they don't, but
we are not supporting each other.
I said more than. I feel like more than. I feel like we do more than. But look at it this way. I remember working with family in my previous organization, and I always felt like the family were treated with more more harshly then. They come down harder on us because we are family. This is my own, and they could expect more from you because we know you. So maybe the criticism sometimes that we put on women is because we know they could do better. We know they should have done better, and we know that they could have done differently. And why didn't? So not all criticism is dragging down the person. It's because sometimes we feel disappointed in.
Can I jump in
That's
here?
a unique perspective, and I think there's value in it. But I also think that the fear that I have is that what we let slide for the men. That's where the inequity comes into
I
play.
think there is, because you mentioned, Anita, you said during the break and on air just now that we vote for any man every election. We certainly don't scrutinize them the way the women are scrutinized.
Yeah.
And the few women who have been, and it has been few, who have been in politics in Belize, pre-post independence, we are harshly criticized. And I think it is unfair, but it is also in many quarters supported by women, that criticism. So I remember distinctly our current Prime Minister, when he was in opposition, he had this style where to show a point he puts his glasses down, and when he gets so agitated in opposition, I remember one time he flung his glasses down in the house, or his face torts in such a way. Have a woman do it? She'd go on crazy.
Emotional,
hormonal, must be the time of the month. Unprofessional, bembe. And I will never, you said earlier, this has to be one of the things that the challenge that you have every time this is probably one of the hardest ones. I've never had to deal, to be honest, with this whole gender situation until I became a senator. I've never had to look at it. I was the head of BTB. I dealt with men in Belize and all over the world in meetings. It's only till I became a senator that I'm like, wait a minute, you actually think I'm lesser than you? And because I express a view, and because I raised my voice perhaps to a certain pitch, suddenly you have trivialized the content and the substance of what I say. But when you do it, you're so masculine. You proved a point. He is dogged and he is focused. Well, those should be the adjectives attributed to me.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay,
but women support that.
So and that's a key point. But I want to bring it all home because we're getting ready to wrap up the conversation. So we're talking of the different lenses that are used in how we view women and men, and I want to spin it in terms of the innovate for change. In your mind or in your experience, what have you done differently? Or what do you think we can do differently starting today as women and men in Belize to start to make the change, even if just incrementally in the life of one little girl or one little boy? What can we do differently? How do we innovate for this change?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it happens in everyday decisions that you make. Like if you see, I remember on Albert Street, and a lot of these things come in reflection, right? I was walking Albert Street, and this mother and her son were buying ice cream, right? And so the mother asked the child, what flavor you want? And he said, the pink one, mommy. And the mom said, what you want pink for? Pink for girl. So I had to collect myself because I could be a bit, much. And so I said, Miss, the child likes strawberry ice cream, you should just give it to him. It doesn't matter what color it is, he likes strawberry ice cream, just give it to him. And so he ended up getting his strawberry ice cream. And so it's like we could come back to checking people, men and women, boys and girls, of these weird things that we put on what gender and masculinity and what femininity and what these things look like. Just calling people out, checking them daily and respectfully. as respectfully as you can, but getting your point across. Because the kid just likes strawberry ice cream.
Yeah.
What does it matter that it's pink?
Another thing that we could do is to ensure in our own areas of work, ensure that there's a fair gender balance. But there are also opportunities for training, skills training for women that you give the men. I have women in the field. I have men in the field. We send them to training. They learn to operate a drone equally. They learn to collect data through ODK and whatever other electronic device equally. They're there, man and woman. It's just that it just happens that we have 6 men to 12 women right now. But there was one time that I had an even 6 to 6.
Yeah.
I always spat it out. We need more men. We need more men. Because let's face it, sometimes you do need a man to do a certain thing. Not that the women can't do it, but there are certain things that we do need a man to do. And we need that balance. Right now we have 6 men to 12 women in our office. It just happened that the men leave at a certain time or more women apply, and it just happens like that.
Exchange.
But I try my best to train them equally across the board.
Yeah.
I was saying raise, what can we do differently? Raise the awareness of each other's value. We don't have that keen awareness of what each person brings to the table, and hence the imbalance that we are experiencing. Some persons did not vote for women in the election, not because they scrutinized and recognized certain things here or there, because it was a woman. And I've heard people say, I didn't vote for her because it's a woman. I don't want a woman to lead me. Why? If she has the right qualities and the right knowledge and experience to move that process forward, why wouldn't you vote for her? Raise the awareness of each other's value, but begin from when they're in the home and you are teaching them. Watch the messages you send as a mother, as a father, to your children. And when we have that sense of everybody contributes to the whole, I believe the balance will take care of itself. Because you are putting the right person for the job in place. You don't have to look at 5'5" or 6'6".
Exactly.
It will take care of itself. Raise the awareness.
I just think that the issue has to be kept at the fore every day. We have to work towards it every day, calling out men who do things, I saw this guy the other day. I was at a car wash, and the girls from SCA were passing, and they started. And I said, guys, leave my SCA girls alone. So we need to do more of that. We need to also, as women, come together and focus on the issues. A lot of times I want to focus on myself. This is what I am doing. It's not about me. It is how what I'm doing will benefit women, girls, boys and girls, men. But let us come together and keep it at the fore. We have to do this every day. This is everyday work. Every day we mentor a girl, we mentor a boy. The bottom line is respecting each other, taking young people under our wings and say to them, value yourself. I do that at the SCA retreats. Almost every 2 weeks I do retreats with the girls at SCA, and those are some of the messages I give to them. The whole issue of respecting yourself and ensuring that people around you respect you. So that is what we need to continue to promote, and we need to do that every day, because as we say, we pass legislation, we pass policies, but it is what we do every day that will make the difference.
I think as we talk about innovate, what can we do? We all wear several hats here. So as a mother, I have to be very conscious of the messaging I'm giving my children every day. And every hour of that day, really. And
no matter what age.
No matter what age. As a sibling, as a sister, I have to also be conscious of the messaging and the participation I'm having in discussions with my family, where it involves the role of women and the respect of women. As a manager of a company with a diverse group of people, varying ages, ethnicities, I have to be conscious of the importance of the role I play. One, as a woman manager, but two, as a leader, that there has to be respect across the board and call it every single time when it occurs. And as a person in Parliament, I have to be prepared to keep it at the forefront and don't make any apologies for it. If every single Senate meeting you'll hear from my mouth something about women, or call it out when a colleague, no matter the chamber, has disrespected or ignored the matter of women issues. It is an issue that every single day, as you say, has to be at the forefront.
All right. Well, thank
And
you
the
for the
men,
conversation
like
this
Isani,
morning.
need to keep it going as well.
Certainly,
Yes.
certainly.
Check your friends.
Check your friends.
That is true, and we're grateful for that as women. So you get the pat on the back from everybody.
You survived it.
Intact.
Thank you very much, ladies, and enjoy the rest of Women's Month.
Thank you.
We're
Thank
going to
you.
go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the activities for Reef Week, so stay tuned.